Hello, and welcome to Creepycore and Folklore, the show about creatures, encounters, old tales, and myths. I'm your host, Iona Wayland, a dark fantasy author, mental health professional, and overall curious person. I want to join other spooky souls and hear about these unusual stories. Hello, spooky soul, and welcome to episode 60 of Creepycore and Folklore. I am fighting myself to not do a deep dive this time. In case you don't know, every 10th episode, I would do a really extra special deep dive where I'd go just totally into down the rabbit hole of certain subject and do like a topic coverage of this thing, whatever that thing was. So I've done spiders and vampires and biblically accurate angels and werewolves and oh my god, I lost myself during Mermay to mermaids, where I had to make 3 deep dive episodes into it. And then I did dragons, and I had to like fight myself on like basically doing this novel about dragon lore and history. It was crazy. And I was like, I can't keep doing this. I keep falling behind in my scheduling, behind in my opinion, because I want to have, I record ahead of schedule. Doesn't matter. But basically I was like, okay, something has to give with the workload, and the special episodes are what had to give. So instead, I'm going to focus on dedicating episodes every 10th one maybe, and make it special that way by dedicating this one to Justin, because Justin will send me these really cool but horrifying, because you know how I feel about the ocean. I'm petrified of the ocean and deep waters and stuff. And he keeps sending me these horrifying creatures that live in the ocean. I'm like, see? This is crazy. And one thing that he was kind of sending me a lot of, which I was like intrigued yet horrified by, were the eels. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to do an episode on eels. And I think that would be a really cool thing to look at. I personally like the spotted eel. And when I say like, I use that loosely. I like that they have polka dots, and that's all I can say about things I like about them. But I would love to know your favorite sea creature. I think my favorite as in looks would be the jellyfish, just because I think they're pretty. It's like looking at a lava lamp. But when it comes to like the actual animal and how cool they are, I would have to say whales. I love all the whales. Belugas are fun. I like that they have a giant melon. I think humpbacks are cool, and sperm whales are really cool. You know what? I just like all the whales. I think they're really neat. The fact that orcas, the killer whale, has like more access to emotions. I feel torn being a therapist and being like, that one maybe should be my favorite since they're emotional creatures. But all the whales have like their own dialects and pods, and I don't know, they're just really fascinating to me. So this is me trying to be upbeat and excited about deep waters. But I would love to know what your favorites are, because I sometimes people will tell me things and I'm like, I've never heard of such a thing, or they'll tell me the name of something. I'm like, oh yeah, I could totally see that. So I'd love to hear about your favorite ocean creature. But diving right in, the history of the eel is very interesting. There's a lot of folklore and myths across cultures about them. They're very serpentine. So if you've listened to the special dragon episode, you can kind of hear about one of the conclusions I came to, and that were talked about in several articles, was how we have kind of a complicated and very rich and historical and even prehistorical connection with serpentine creatures. And that's why they show up in so many fairy tales, folk tales, oral traditions, and they're very spiritual as well. There's a lot of religious ties to serpents, for example, but they have these slippery bodies, and secretive behaviors. They have very interesting behaviors underwater. And so they've kind of been associated with like fascination, mystery, things like that. So we're going to dive into the world of eel folklore and explore its cultural significance, ancient myths, and how these creatures affect human beliefs. So there are many ancient myths and legends that have the eel. And in Greek mythology specifically, the eel was believed to be a transformation of the water nymph. I said nymph. That's so hard to say. Nymph. Oh my goodness. But the water nymph Anguilla, or Angia, where she was cursed by the goddess Hera. And this myth explains the elongated shape and the wiggly movements of the eel. And eels are actually called Anguilla in Greek. And I know I'm not saying that correctly at all. It's associated with transformation myths, of course, and divine curses, which I think is interesting. And the cursed transformation of Anguilla is one that's lasted a really long time. And according to her story, she was a beautiful and carefree nymph who caught the attention of Hera, who is a goddess. And Hera was really enraged and jealous of her looks. And so she transformed her into this like slimy, slippery eel. And that myth is kind of an explanation for the elongated shape and wiggly movements of eels, and it symbolizes the consequences of divine wrath. Then there's the river god as the father of eels. That's also from Greek mythology. There was this river god, Achilles. I feel like that ties in with Achilles, but this is something that I really appreciate whenever Spooky Souls will tell me like more about the Greek mythos, because this is something I'm really not familiar with, but I find it really intriguing, and a lot of people know way more than me about it. So I feel like Achilles and Achelos are kind of similar sounding, so maybe there's a tie there, or maybe they're the same person, because that's happened before. Kind of like Hercules and Heracles are the same person, but it just depends on how it's spelled. But Achelos is regarded as the father of eels as well as the river god. And there's lots of myths that Achilles was known to take the form of an eel and kind of symbolize the cyclical nature of life, death, and rebirth that's kind of associated also with water and rivers. And this was this emphasis on this eel's significance as a creature tied to aquatic realms because it was this prominent aspect of Greek mythology and the cyclical nature of their belief system. There's also symbols of regeneration and renewal. There's a very, it's not really well known, the life cycle of eels, or it wasn't for a long time, because they transform from larvae to adults. And so because of this, their regeneration and renewal is associated with them in Greek mythology. They can also navigate both freshwater and saltwater, which can add to what makes them so mysterious. Like, where did you come from? How come you're so able to handle these diverse aquatic realms? I know some eels, electric eels, produce electricity, and that's very interesting and difficult to know where that's coming from. And it's this kind of mesmerizing, intriguing background that a lot of people didn't understand or still don't understand about the eel, and that kind of adds to its mystery. And in some versions of Greek mythology, the eel had a connection with the underworld, and it served as a link between the realms of gods and humans. And in these myths, the eel was seen as a creature that could cross the boundaries between life and death, and it made it a symbol of transition and transcendence. But it is really cool to hear about different Greek mythos related to eels, because this perception of what they thought might happen and where eels came from and its cyclical nature kind of transformed their legends surrounding it, and what they represented. There are also eels in folk medicine, and this link is it's somewhat superstitious, some might say, but some of it is very spiritual, because it's believed that the slime from an eel has healing properties and could be used to treat wounds or skin conditions. And in others, the eel was thought to bring good luck or on the flip side, the harbinger of bad omens. Just depends on the circumstances of their appearance. Sometimes it's eaten as a culinary delicacy, but this potent healing agent with the eel is very cool to me, especially because the eel itself is very sleek and elusive, and it is very unique physiologically. And the life cycle is, as I was saying before, very mysterious and was difficult to understand. And because of this, they have this ability, or it's believed they have this medicinal properties to them. So eel slime in particular comes from a mucus secreted by eels. And it's said that you put it on topically to treat wounds, burns, and skin conditions due to its reported anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial effects. And it's one of those things where like I think folk medicine needs to be better studied, because I think folk medicine has a lot to offer. And just because it's not like packaged as a pill doesn't mean that we should, or an ointment means that we should like ignore it. Because if people have been using this for a while, then like, and it's purported to help, then why not look into that maybe a little further? But it's thought that the thought process behind it is that the slime creates a protective barrier over the affected area and it promotes faster healing. There's also some cultures where eel essence, which is a concentrated extract from boiling eels, has been used for respiratory ailments like asthma and bronchitis. And this essence of eel was believed to have expectorant properties. And as someone who was in pharmacy school who then decided to leave pharmacy school, just so you know, expectorant means that it makes a productive cough. So like, this is really gross. But whatever. We're talking about mucus. Bear with me. But like, there are dry coughs, and then there are, productive coughs. And the productive coughs might come up with like, they might sound wet, or they might come up with like mucus grossness. Okay, now I'm done, I promise. So it's kind of like, it makes you get the stuff out of your lungs, apparently. And because of these expectorant properties, it clears the airways and alleviates breathing difficulties. There are also, this one I have to say is my favorite. There are eel bone amulets for joint pain. So eel bones were traditionally used as a protective amulet and talisman in folk medicine to help with joint pain, arthritis, and rheumatism. And the bones were worn as a necklace or bracelets because it was believed to harness the eel's regenerative properties and offer relief from physical discomfort. And like I was saying before, it's also considered a delicacy in some places, and eel consumption is supposed to help with vitality and fertility. So consuming eels was kind of believed to bestow strength and increase the odds of getting pregnant. And that makes the eel an excellent source of proteins and essential nutrients, just like this isn't related to folklore, like folk medicine at all. Like they are a good source of protein and have nutrients in it that were considered, a nourishing food that could boost overall well-being and enhance life expectancy. It's also said that eel baths were helpful for rejuvenating. This makes me uncomfortable to think about because, of course, my brain went into, let's just sink into a nice warm tub filled with eels and slimy things. And what I'm imagining is not actually far off, because this eel bath is supposed to promote rejuvenation and relaxation, where you immerse yourself in tubs containing live eels. And it's believed that to transfer their mystical properties to the person that's bathing, and it revitalizes the body and the mind. So I don't think I could handle it, but maybe that's something I could try in the future once I could get over my fears a little bit. It's really cool that the eel's reputation is being like a creature that can assist with health, and it kind of deepens that connection between traditional cultures and the natural world across all these different regions and countries and across the globe. because not only is it a source of sustenance, but it also has like curative properties to it that is believed to have it. And modern medicine and scientific research have shed light a little bit on the potential benefits of certain compounds found in eels. But many of these traditional practices are deeply rooted in cultural beliefs and historical wisdom. And the use of the eel in folk medicine is kind of a testament to the enduring love of eels and how these mysterious creatures in nature can be kind of revered and helpful to different cultural practices. What I think is really cool is the eel creation myths. There are some creation myths where the eel played a significant role. For instance, the Maori people, the indigenous folks of New Zealand, have this very intricate and rich cultural heritage that's entwined with eel myths that's related to the creation of their world and everyone who inhabits their world. For instance, Rangi and Papa are considered the primal parents. So in the beginning, Maori mythology describes the cosmos as a place of darkness and chaos. And Rangi, the sky father, and Papa, the earth mother, were the primordial beings responsible for giving birth to the world. And they clung tightly together, and they left no room for light or life to flourish between them. And what happened was that there's the story of Tane Mahuta, one of the divine offsprings of Rangi and Papa. And he was filled with this compassion for his siblings who lived in perpetual darkness. And so Tani sought to separate his parents and bring light to the world. And after several attempts, Tani succeeded in pushing Rangi high into the sky and creating the heavens and leaving Papa as the earth below. The children of Rangi and Papa began to flourish on earth, and all these children were known as the Atua, or gods, that came into existence and took on different forms and roles in shaping the world and all of its inhabitants. So, for instance, with the eel, there's a symbolic link there related to the Maori creation story, because the eel plays the role of connecting the divine realm with the human world. And where have we heard this before? In Greek folklore. So now we know there's more connection here. So Tani Mahuta, after creating the heavens and the earth, chose the eel as one of the creatures to represent the link between the realms of gods and humans. And the eel, with its ability to travel between freshwater and saltwater, symbolized that connection between terrestrial and aquatic worlds, acting kind of as this like mediator or this transcendental connection between Atua and the people of New Zealand. Throughout Maori culture, eels have held a very special place of significance. They're regarded as a taonga, or a treasure, that have been a traditional food source for the Maori people. And the Maori's deep respect for eels is reflected in their association with the divine and their role as a bridge between spiritual and earthly realms and aquatic realms. So I love the eel as like this symbolic creature serving as that bridge between divine and mortal spaces. And it can navigate both. And it's reflected in that ability to navigate fresh and salt water. And I think it's cool to see how the Atua, or the gods, and the people of New Zealand are connected through this creature. I think that's really, really cool. In Japan, the eel is highly esteemed and considered a delicacy, especially during the summer months. So the tradition of eating eel during, quote, Day of the Ox, end quote, is believed to provide stamina and protection from the summer heat. So as you can see, the eel has this really rich history and folklore. It's connected with vitality. It's connected with omens. It's connected with myths across the globe. And there are creation stories even with them, and their ability to heal and protect, and that their mysterious life cycle and their ability to navigate wildly different environments like salt and freshwater kind of leaves a mark on humans, because we want to explore and study these fascinating creatures. And that's probably why they hold such a wonderful place in our cultural narratives. And it's this this connection and symbol to the enduring fascination and wonder of these aquatic creatures. So thank you for listening to this slippery, slimy tale. All these historical backgrounds between how divine the eels are. And thank you, Justin, for sending me horrifying videos of eels just popping out of places you didn't see them in. There were really cute ones that were sent to me where like a diver is like friends with an eel, like a spotted eel. So that one was fine, but their faces are very, I don't know another way other than say horrifying. They're very horrifying, but they're very sweet seeming as well. But thank you for listening. And I will talk to you next week. Thanks to all you spooky souls out there for listening to Creepycore and Folklore. Follow on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok if you're looking for more uncanny content. If you have your own tales to tell, you can email creepycoreandfolklore@gmail.com. If you liked this, please leave a review wherever you get your podcasts, or tell a friend who might enjoy these stories to spread the word. If you're interested in dark fantasy, check out my Hollowverse series. Ashes is available now in paperback and ebook on Amazon and audiobook on Audible, and the sequel is underway. I'm Iona Wayland, and I'll see you next time.